makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Tulsi Gabbard remains on the right wing warpath, specifically the militaristic right wing warpath, which puts into question more and more why on earth did a significant segment of the left, the dum-dum left, ever think that she was really the anti-war candidate that she was sold as. So let's watch her recent appearance on the Tucker Carlson show, where they talk about drone strikes.
We thought it'd be interesting to see what Tulsi Gabbard thinks about this. She's a former member of Congress from Hawaii. She served in Iraq as a member of the Hawaii Army National Guard. She's still serving the country in the military. She joins us tonight. Congresswoman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie. I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life. You get caught and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible. Yeah. War is a terrible thing, and
there's going to be a but at some point.
I think it's important for the American people to understand that Islamist jihadists are continuing to wage war against us. And the Islamist ideology, not the same as the religion of Islam, but this Islamist ideology, which is a political ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks on our country on 9/11, is the greatest threat that we're facing right now in this country and the world. It is the foundation of governance of so-called Islamic countries like Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's what's behind the discriminatory policies that they have in these countries against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and others.
I'm sure there's no racism in Hindu nationalist India right now against its Muslim population. No, somehow they're probably the victims, because in Tulsi Gabbard's world, as well as in the world of every single Islamophobe, Muslims are never victims of anything in any society on earth. They are only the aggressors. And that's the language that led to so many people essentially endorsing every single atrocity committed in the Middle East. You know, all these endless wars or forever wars, however you want to call them. That is the mentality. And, you know, you could perhaps make the case that back in 2001 or 2 or 3, yes, Islamism did represent a very credible threat to a lot of societies on Earth. And, you know, there were plenty of big terrorist attacks, not just in the US, but in Europe as well. But we're not in 2003 anymore. Times have changed. How can you not realize that almost every single major violent incident in the US nowadays is being caused by right-wingers, you know, by the far right? Of course you're not going to say that. And she's not going to say that on Tucker Carlson's show, of course, because all these people probably also watch the Tucker Carlson show. You know, same as in the world, in the rest of the world. You know, is Islamism really the cause of you know, the worst things that are happening today in the world? I don't think it is. So, you know, she's basically peddling the rhetoric that you would hear from neocons back in the day, in the prelude of the Iraq War, when they were just trying to justify, you know, attacking or invading every single Muslim country in the Middle East. That's the rhetoric that you're hearing now.
So as long as these Islamist jihadists are waging war against us, we have to work to defeat them militarily and ideologically. And militarily, we have two choices in how we do that. Number one, we can continue to invade and occupy and nation-build in countries around the world, just as we did in Afghanistan, at great cost. Number two, we can take a targeted approach using airstrikes, using our special forces to go in and go after these terrorist cells. The reality is that the cost the cost to the American people, the cost to our troops, the cost to civilians will be far less if we take this very targeted approach to go after.
This is really strange because the whole point of this conversation began with a drone strike that basically only killed civilians. That was supposed to be against an ISIS-K leader or something of the sort, ended up being an aid worker. So really, is that what you want? The complete non-accountability of drone strikes from anywhere in the world against whatever target you pick? That's the same thing. All she doesn't want is ground troops coming back home in body bags. But the drone strike approach has never worked. It hasn't worked. So it's unbelievable. How on earth can she claim to be anti-war with these views?
After these jihadist terrorist cells, than if we continue making the very same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and other parts of the world of invasion, occupation, and nation building.
Great. So that is the resident anti-war hero of the dumb left, of the Jimmy Dores of the world. And let's watch what Jimmy Dore once asked her. Because if you go on Jimmy Dore's site and you Google Jimmy Dore, Tulsi Gabbard, anti-war, you'll see no shortage of videos promoting her as the anti-war candidate because, you know, she debunked the pro-war lies of the mainstream media or some bullshit like that. So here's when she endorsed Biden. She was interviewed again by Jimmy Dore, and this is what he asks her.
So, I mean, it seems to me that soldiers are not fighting for the safety and security of this country, and when they go over to places like Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, they're actually achieving the opposite. Even in fighting the war on terror, where it's observed that for every civilian killed, we create 2 more jihadis. And so, I mean, it just seems, giving your piercing criticism of these corporate interventions, doesn't it seem, can you square that circle for me, how you can be proud to serve in things that you call out for being wrong?
I'm proud to serve our country. I am angered by the politicians who needlessly send our troops into harm's way to fight in wars that don't make us any safer. There are missions that our troops are sent on to go and defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda that are focused on making the American people safe. And those are missions that should continue to defeat that threat that is posed to our national security and foreign policy.
So note that this video is all the way from March 2020. And, you know, she hasn't changed those views at all. So I repeat, how on earth can the Jimmy Dore dumb left have been fooled into thinking that this was an anti-war candidate? Please, I really want to hear on the comments. Because some of you are going to comment. And I want you to comment. I want you to explain to me how you thought she was anti-war when her message has been very much consistent all this time.
But you're right, there are a lot of missions in whether it's continued deployments to Afghanistan without any clear objective or any clear goal that actually serves our country's security interests, or regime change wars like we've seen in Iraq and Syria and Libya and other countries that actually undermine our national security interests. So there is a difference and a distinction, especially when you understand that it's the politicians who are making these decisions, and it's why I'm focusing my efforts on bringing about that change there to truly honor them and their service.
So now we're in the middle of this COVID pandemic, and you don't eat animal products.
So does he challenge her at all? Because she basically gave a non-answer. She basically said, well, I'm just against, the ground troop invasion type of wars, but I'm not against every other single type of war. The type that Jimmy Dore consistently complains about. Because for Jimmy Dore and, the Aaron Mates and Max Blumenthal's that he invites all the time, remember, the line that they've been giving over the past couple of months, especially after the Afghan withdrawal or during the whole incident, was that this really changes nothing because the US is still bombing all these other countries. Look, they just bombed Somalia the other day. Look, they're still in Syria. That's the argument that they're giving, that every single action, drone strike, whatever, is a continuation of the forever wars. And he doesn't challenge her at all. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. How can anyone see this guy as anything other than a fucking fraud? When he's basically not, this brave and fearless jagoff comedian pundit is clearly not being brave and fearless when interviewing Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to use his words. You fucking nutless coward. Now, again, I want you to see that there is evidence that this is the discourse that Jimmy Dore uses. So this is one of his recent appearances on Tucker Carlson. All these dumb left-wingers love Tucker Carlson. Isn't that a coincidence? Let's see what he has to say.
First of all, as soon as he announced it, he started ramping up the bombing. I don't know if you know that.
So he's talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Bombed Shahid Anwar Khan High School and a health clinic that killed 20 people, a lot of them women and children. So he's ramping up the bombings as he's saying we're pulling out. And I don't know what that is, if that's dementia or what, but that's the guy who's ordering the strikes. That's happening right now. They increased the military budget. So why is Joe Biden being allowed to pull out of Afghanistan? Well, because he's agreed to start bombing in Somalia. I don't know if you know that's happening. Joe Biden is now bombing the poorest people in Africa. Like 40% of the country are nomads. And Joe Biden is now bombing Somalia. So now he's occupying a third of Syria right now. So
all these things are Tulsi Gabbard approved. By her standards of the kind of military operations that the U.S. should continue engaging. This is all fine with her. But it's clearly not fine with Jimmy Dore. At least when he goes on Tucker Carlson to describe these things. But it was okay for him if Tulsi Gabbard said it. And he didn't challenge her on that at all.
just switching his imperialism. And I really appreciate you giving me a chance to come on and talk about this, because they'll never stand up against imperialism at CNN or MSNBC or anywhere else. So I just want to say thanks for that. And what we need right now is a real anti-war movement to rise up in America to stop these wars. They gave Joe Biden an extra $25 billion to do war.
Yeah, well, if you want an anti-war movement, Jimmy, maybe Tulsi Gabbard shouldn't be your standard bearer, because she is basically endorsing all the things that you just described as being bad. And she's fine with that. You nutless fucking coward. So, there you go. See for yourself. Like I said, go to Jimmy Dore's YouTube channel, see all his supposed Tulsi anti-war videos, and just look at the entire ecosystem that surrounds Jimmy Dore and these other buffoons. You had the Nico House, this guy who also has a bunch of other networks like the Convo Couch, sort of allied to them. It's a whole ecosystem of just these fucking morons who are more anti-left than they are actually anti-right. And they've all promoted this narrative that somehow Tulsi Gabbard is really the only authentic anti-war. She was the only authentic anti-war candidate during the Democratic primaries. That is all BS. And I think her recent statements, as well as her, I almost forgot to mention, her recent tweets have also been pretty damn horrific. Because now it's not just about war, because she said basically what she just said in that first video. She basically tweeted that same thing on 9/11. That's the video that I made a couple of weeks ago. But now she's on immigration as well. The Biden-Harris open door policy has been a disaster. It needs to end now. The main beneficiaries of open borders are the gangs, cartels, and human traffickers. The Trump policy of having people wait on the other side of the border worked and needs to be reinstated. Open doors. Who on earth thinks the U.S. is an open door immigration country? You gotta be fucking kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. This is right. She's right wing. She is right wing. You can't see the disc. Not just right wing. She's far right wing. Okay? Her talking points are almost the same as Tucker Carlson's. Her transphobia, her anti-immigration, her love of every type of warfare, except the ones that might bring soldiers back in body bags. So let's just bomb them from afar, from a remote radar screen. That is fine. Regardless of whether it's a school in Somalia, regardless of whether it's an aid worker in Afghanistan, who the fuck cares? That is fine with her. So I'll repeat my challenge, which I believe I did in my previous video on Tulsi Gabbard. For any Tulsi Gabbard fanboy, and it's mostly boys, because I do think that they have this kind of strange psychosexual obsession over her, please, in the comments, illustrate to me how anything that she said in that video with Tucker Carlson or any of these recent tweets, how is any of this anti-war? Please. Consistent with the anti-war views that Jimmy Dore just described. Please, I really want to know. Please square this circle. So, yeah. On that note, if you like this video, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe. And there will be more Tulsi bashing in the future.